Welcome back to the Sportsnaut NFL conversation. Joining us today, Dallas Robinson from the Pro Football Network. He's an NFL writer there, also host of the PFN Cincinnati Bengals podcast. And we're going to talk about quarterbacks with him today. Do me a favor, follow him up on X at Dallas D. Robinson if you want some good football information. Dallas, thanks for being back with us. And we want to jump right in because there's some quarterback battles going on around the NFL, some young guys involved in the mix, some people who've changed zip codes. And we'll start there in Pittsburgh. You have Russell Wilson, who continues to have a calf injury, has not been out there. And you see Justin Fields in his new location, seemingly sort of getting this offensive line on his side. We saw a little skirmish in camp the other day. Hearing a lot about Justin Fields coming out of Pittsburgh. What's that situation look like? Is this going to be a tough decision for Mike Tomlin as he comes down?
It's interesting because, I mean, from the second the Steelers signed Russell Wilson, it's been every message has been Russell Wilson is our starter, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he is the plan 1A, that maybe Justin Fields will come in later in the season, but Russ is the guy. Now, Russ gets hurt pushing a sled, I think, at training camp, which doesn't really make much sense to me from a quarterback perspective, but I think it does have to open the door a little bit for the Steelers. And I'm coming from this from a perspective of I think Justin Fields makes more sense long-term for the Steelers anyway. He's obviously much younger. He showed far more in recent seasons than Russ has. I just don't really understand what the plan is for the Steelers after this season. Both Russ and Justin Fields are free agents. Russell Wilson is 36, 37 years old. He's not a long-term option. I think starting Justin Fields, it makes way more sense, but you know how the Steelers are. They're a team that plays with the run game, with defense, with trying to limit mistakes. Russell Wilson is probably a better fit for that if you're looking through Mike Tomlin's eyes. Mm-hmm. So I can see why Russ Wilson is probably going to open the season as the starter. I do think we're very liable to see Justin Fields, whether that's the first month of the season, the first half. I think he will see snaps at some point. I just don't know exactly when that's going to be.
That was my next question was, could this be a situation where we see both? And I think you see it around the NFL with a couple of these same situations where you have a young quarterback and a veteran quarterback. Obviously, Russell Wilson trying to erase the memory of Denver. He didn't play that badly in Denver, but it was not a good situation. So it'll be interesting. And then Tomlin with his propensity, he likes veterans, but yet he also likes to turn to the young guys. He's kind of, he's a smart coach. He's been there a long time. So you figure that he'll make the best decision for his team there. We go now to Minnesota, up where you're at, and you look at the Vikings and you think about JJ McCarthy there. Obviously, they love JJ McCarthy, drafted him. You have Sam Darnold. When you look at that, you see McCarthy, the words coming out of camp are it's kind of progressing slowly. Is this a case where we're going to see Sam Darnold most likely as a starter, and then JJ McCarthy maybe get some opportunity later in the season as he grasps that offense in the pro game more?
That's what it seems like if you listen to Kevin O'Connell and the rest of the Vikings staff. And, they're very impressed with Sam Darnold. I mean, what NFL coach has not been impressed with Sam Darnold when they've gotten him on the practice field, right? The guy, I mean, he's still only 27 years old. He's got a lot of talent. I think we all know that. But the reality is that Sam Darnold has just never been productive as an NFL starter. He's had, a couple hot stretches here and there with the Panthers. He started a meaningless regular season finale for the 49ers last year, looked okay. There's a lot of upside there, I think, especially when you've got a play caller like Kevin O'Connell, a pretty good offensive line for the Vikings. Let's not forget Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson whenever he comes back. The situation, I think, in Minnesota is great. But you look at the schedule the Vikings have to start off with, it is just absolutely daunting. Their opening slate is Giants, 49ers, Texans, Packers, Jets. Like four of the best defenses in the NFL, and then a bye week. I think that there's a very real possibility that the Vikings are 1-4 at that point, and Kevin O'Connell has no choice but to say after the bye, JJ, you're going in. You're our starter now. Sorry, Sam, we gave you $8 or $10 million, whatever it was. It's time for JJ at this point. I think that's a possibility just based on how the Minnesota schedule kind of opens up this year.
Well, and that would be a smart move too, based on what you're saying with that schedule, because the last thing you want to do with a young quarterback, I don't care how good he is, or somebody like McCarthy, who I think people are conflicted on, you don't want to ruin his confidence as a rookie. So putting him up against those defenses would just be ridiculous. And so why not use Darnold? And you have that situation too, where we learned last year, you really need 2-3 quarterbacks anyway. So the money they spent on Darnold, okay, I get it. But at the same time, at least you have a veteran there who can come in and play, and you can count on to come in there with some experience. We go to Denver now. We look at Denver, and of course, Bo Nix, another guy drafted this past NFL draft, along with Jarett Stidham, now on his third team, of course, New England. Then he goes to Vegas and has some success there late in the season. And then he's now in Denver. What's that battle look like? And this Broncos team, I think a lot of people are looking at it very suspect and thinking maybe a year down the road, 2 years down the road with Bo Nix, they might be better. But what does that battle look like?
Yeah, I think the Broncos are, have a non-zero chance to be the worst team in the NFL this year. I really do, just based on how the roster is, based on Bo Nix's development. But having said that, I don't think there's a reason not to start Bo Nix. I mean, it sounds like Sean Payton has all but removed Zach Wilson from Denver's quarterback competition, that he's not getting at first-team reps anymore, that it's basically down to Bo Nix and Jarett Stidham, who's still there. He was the backup last season behind Rusell Wilson. I don't see a reason why Sean Payton just wouldn't get things started with Bo Nix, right? The entire offseason, the entire pre-draft process is how much of a perfect fit Bo Nix is for Sean Payton's system, that, he's Drew Brees light. He's a diet version of Drew Brees, right? I think just let's get things going. The Denver is at least a year away, if not 2 years away, I think, from building up the rest of this roster, giving Bo Nix or whoever is playing quarterback ample weapons to get involved in Sean Payton's system. You're so far away, I think you might as well just get Bo Nix in there, get him the reps, get him to kind of learn under fire. I don't really see a viable reason to play someone like Jarett Stidham at this point. We know who Jarett Stidham is. He's a fine, probably back-end backup. There's really no reason to send him out there for 4 or 5 games only to let Bo Nix come in later in the year. Let's just get things going here.
Yeah, he's not going to turn into an all-pro quarterback all of a sudden, I don't think. But at least they have that settled there. And look, Peyton gets his guy, right? This is a guy he can develop. We saw what he did with Drew Brees after Brees' terrible time with the Chargers, not by Brees' account, but just the organization there. So it's good to see that. Then we finish up in New England when we're talking about some of these young quarterbacks. Drake May, a guy I really like, despite all the analysts talking about Drake May's downsides, and I understand them. Now he goes into a situation, you talk about a full rebuild, new coaching staff, everything in New England. When is he going to see the field? Do you think they're going to baby him along and let him sit and go that veteran route and just kind of let him learn? Or do you think they throw him into the fire too?
No, I think with the Patriots, I think that they are definitely going to let him sit for a while for a couple of reasons. Number one, Dakota Randall, who does a great job covering the Patriots for us at Pro Football Network, has been at practice every day. Drake May's not playing that well at practice. Like, let's just be honest. And that's to be expected, right? Drake May, I think, was viewed as a raw prospect. It's his first training camp in the NFL. That's fine. No one's worried about Drake May's long-term progress, but it's been a struggle through the opening days of camp. Whereas Jacoby Brissett, at least for my money, is one of the top backups in the NFL. This guy ranked, I think, 8th or 9th in QBR when he was filling in with the Browns for Deshaun Watson a couple years ago. And he has a relationship with Patriots OC Alex Van Pelt, who was with him in Cleveland. I think he's played well throughout training camp practices. We talked about some of these other teams' schedule. Look at the Patriots schedule. By our metrics at PFN, most difficult schedule in the NFL. Their opening slate, they face the Bengals, the Jets twice, 49ers, Dolphins, Texans, and Jags. It's an insane opening slate.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to put Drake May out there. You've got no weapons. You've got serious offensive line questions. Even if, Alex Van Pelt, maybe he has a relationship with Brissett, we don't really know what he's going to be like as a play caller with a rookie quarterback. There's a lot of questions here, I think. The Patriots bye is not until week 14. There's not some perfect slot for Drake May to come in here. I think it'll happen at some point, but I think we're a ways away. I think we will see Brissett for at least half the season, if not more, until there's just maybe kind of an obvious point where May could come in.
Right. And they're going to have, like you said, they're going to have a tough season with that schedule. It's just, it's impossible in my view, but there might be times when they're way down, they can put him in there and just get him some reps, right? That's the whole point. And with a guy that you just want to develop and take your time with. So that's interesting. Now let's go to some of the not quarterback battles, but some of the veterans coming back, and we'll start with a team you cover, and that's the Bengals. Joe Burrow. I look at Joe Burrow, and to me, no question, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, top 4 guys. The only issue for him has been staying on the field. How big of a year is it for him to stay healthy, get through the entire year, no matter what happens with the Bengals? Bengals have a great shot, obviously tough AFC North, but how big of a year is it for him as far as his longevity goes and kind of proving that he can get through a whole season?
Oh, I think it's huge. I mean, this entire summer, you've heard Joe Burrow use terms like, he's considering his football mortality. I mean, it's kind of shocking language for a
For a
quarterback who's
young
still
guy.
in his 20s. He suffered that season-ending wrist injury last year. He's since talked about that he cannot find another quarterback on record who has suffered this same injury. So I think it's fair to have questions. Joe Burrow has never had a normal training camp. He's been either injured or had, it was the COVID season. There's been all sorts of stuff going on through Joe Burrow's career every offseason. Finally, kind of the most normal offseason he's had. And I'm excited about what Joe Burrow can do this year. I
Mhm.
really am. He got everyone saw the haircut, the new blonde hair. It seems like he's locked in from a mental perspective. And then I'm excited about the Bengals offense. I think Chase
Oh, yeah.
Brown at running back, I think has a chance to be an upgrade on what Joe Mixon offered last year. Tyler Boyd is gone, but you've got younger guys like Andre Yoshivas and third round pick Jermaine Burton who are going to step in behind T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And then I think what the Bengals were able to do with Jake Browning after Joe Burrow went down last season was pretty impressive. I
It
think they
was.
made some changes to their offense, went under center a little bit more. I think you'll see some of those changes enacted even with Joe Burrow back in the lineup. And I think it'll help this Bengals offense be a little bit different and have a little bit new ideas. They got some new voices on their staff. They have a new OC in Dan Pitcher who's not calling the plays, but should offer some new ideas. The Bengals, I think, I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I really do think that they are in for a rebound season, not only on offense, but on defense too, where they just could not stop any explosive plays last year. So I'm high on the Bengals, despite, maybe I do host the podcast. I'm a little bit of a fan here, but I'm very high on the Bengals this season.
Well, and the AFC North, as much as I talked about it being a good conference, I look at all of the other teams with the exception of Baltimore. Baltimore's question marks come obviously in the postseason, as we've seen with Lamar Jackson. But you look at Cleveland, you look at Pittsburgh, both can be very good teams, but both could also go the other direction because we don't know a quarterback in Cleveland. Does Deshaun Watson become even 60 or 70% of who he used to be? And then in Pittsburgh, you have the quarterback question. What's going to happen there? And a lot of other questions in Pittsburgh too. Now they always seem to kind of put it together enough to stay competitive. But I look at the Bengals and the Ravens in that division, and I see them just a step above all those guys because I think they have less question marks. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think the Ravens are the team that I'm a little bit concerned about. I mean, they lost a lot over the offseason. They lost
They did.
60% of their starting offensive line. They lost some defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, who for my money was maybe Steve Spagnuolo is the best DC, but Mike McDonald is right there. I think he's going to do a great job as Seattle's head coach. I think they lost a lot. And then Cleveland, I think Cleveland has one of the better rosters in the NFL if you don't count quarterback. Like they are set at every position. They have no weaknesses. I think there's a chance we see Jameis Winston come in and play this year, though, just based on how Deshaun Watson performed last year, even when he was healthy. I just don't think he ever looked comfortable. He was never effective, constantly injured. We've got all the off-field stuff. We've got the contract situation. I would not be surprised to see Jameis Winston come in at some point and maybe be a little more effective than what we saw from Deshaun Watson last year. But I agree. I think the Bengals are the most talented team in the division. I think they're maybe being a little slept on because of what happened last year and the injuries, but I have no doubt the Bengals, assuming health, will be right back in the mix in the AFC North.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. Lastly, Justin Herbert out in Los Angeles with the Chargers, a plantar fascia injury. I've had plantar fasciitis in my life. It took me a long time to get over it. They say he's going to be ready by week 1. What are you hearing on that? And boy, the Chargers are in a state of flux. Very excited because of Jim Harbaugh coming on board and the attitude he brings there. But they got a lot of question marks. And now with Herbert, that's the biggest one of all.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers are kind of I'm seeing them as a sleeper postseason pick for a lot of people. I think their over under is like 8.5 wins, maybe something like that. I mean, to me, that is entirely based on Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. I mean, there's not a lot else to like on this roster. They I guess the Chargers have a decent offensive line, but they don't have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of holes on defense. Now, one of the two entities that you're kind of banking on in Justin Herbert is a question mark. And it's kind of same old story for the Chargers, right? We've got new coaching staff, new front office, and here we go again. The same problems, the same type of injury questions popping up. I mean, I'm hopeful for Justin Herbert. I really want to see him in an offense that can harness his talent, which we just haven't seen throughout his NFL career, that can truly optimize what he's able to do. It's tough, I mean, to see an injury like this, like you mentioned, that absolutely can linger. We've seen it with so many NFL players that's ruined seasons of this type of injury. I'm hopeful that Herbert is able to get back by week 1, but it just does not make you feel good if who's their Easton Stick, I think, is their backup. If he's going to be starting in week 1 or 2, like it's not the way you want to start out the season. And I think anyone that is kind of having those sleeper high hopes for the Chargers, this has to make you feel a little bit worried.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch it. And of course, season just under a month away now, or about a month away. So we're excited about it. And you can also listen to the Bengals podcast. If you're a Bengals fan, go check out the PFN Bengals podcast. Also, make sure you follow Dallas on x.com at Dallas D Robinson if you want to keep track of all that he covers in the NFL. Man, I'm sure we'll have you on more as we move into the season. Appreciate your time today and take care.
Thank you, sir. Always love being on. Appreciate you.